Have you ever stood still in the early morning, watching the golden sunlight spill across the horizon, and felt a quiet voice within asking, what truly makes life fulfilling? Perhaps it was a fleeting moment, brushed aside by the rush of daily life. But that question, simple yet profound, holds the key to something many of us seek, a life not just lived, but truly experienced. In today's fast-paced world, the whispers of what it means to live well are often drowned out by the noise of busyness. We're told to keep moving, stay active, and never stop striving. But what if the secret wasn't in doing more, but in doing differently? What if true vitality, joy, and contentment could be found in slowing down, savoring the little things, and embracing gratitude? As we embark on this journey together, I'll share stories of remarkable individuals who discovered the transformative power of 3 practices: mindful rest, the joy of simple moments, and living with gratitude. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're actionable steps you can begin today to enrich your life, no matter your age or circumstance. So, take a deep breath, let go of distractions, and join me as we explore how to live with intention, grace, and an open heart. By the end, I promise you'll see life through a lens of deeper appreciation and purpose. Chapter 1: The Power of Mindful Rest. There's a certain irony in how we chase wellness. We strive for more energy, more movement, and more productivity, believing that constant activity is the key to longevity. But have you ever noticed how even a machine wears down without proper care? What if our approach to living well was missing a vital piece of the puzzle? David's story comes to mind, a man whose life transformed my understanding of what it truly means to age well. I met David during a quiet afternoon at a community center where he was sharing his experience with a group of curious listeners. His warm, easy smile was not what you'd expect from someone who had spent the better part of his life chasing physical endurance. A retired marathon runner, David had once prided himself on being the embodiment of motion and vitality. His daily schedule had been a testament to perpetual activity. Morning runs that cut through the crisp air, intense tennis matches under the midday sun, and long evening walks beneath the stars. For years, this lifestyle worked until it didn't. David described how, slowly, the exhaustion crept in. It wasn't the kind of tiredness a good night's sleep could cure. It was something deeper. His joints began to ache persistently, his stamina waned, and even his blood pressure started to rise despite his rigorous routines. I felt like I was doing everything right, he confessed, his voice tinged with frustration. But my body was telling me otherwise. An unexpected injury finally forced David to slow down. First, he resisted the idea of rest, convinced it would rob him of the progress he'd worked so hard to achieve. But as days turned into weeks of limited movement, something remarkable happened. David began to feel better. His energy returned, his pain lessened, and for the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. David called this discovery his golden formula, the art of mindful rest. It began simply. Every morning, instead of lacing up his running shoes, he would step out onto his porch with a steaming cup of coffee. He would sit quietly, letting the cool breeze brush against his face as the world around him awakened. I used to think this was wasting time, he admitted with a chuckle. Now I know it's the best investment I can make. This wasn't about abandoning activity altogether. David still played tennis and took long walks, but his approach had changed. Between each activity, he incorporated intentional pauses, short moments to breathe deeply, stretch gently, or simply sit in silence. These weren't mere breaks. They were resets, opportunities to recharge his mind and body. What struck me most about David's story was how counterintuitive it seemed at first. We live in a culture that celebrates hustle and movement, often equating rest with laziness. But science, as David discovered, tells a different story. Research from the Mayo Clinic reveals that after age 70, the body requires more recovery time to maintain optimal health. It's not about doing less for the sake of slowing down. It's about doing better by honoring your body's natural rhythms. Dr. Sarah Johnson, a leading expert on aging, conducted groundbreaking studies on what she calls strategic rest. Her findings showed that older adults who embraced restful practices experienced improved sleep quality, normalized blood pressure, and even enhanced cognitive function. "It's not just about the quantity of rest," she explained. "It's about the quality and intention behind it." David's story became a powerful example of how incorporating rest into daily life doesn't diminish activity. It enhances it. He began each day with what he called his morning mindful moments. Sitting on his porch with a coffee in hand, he allowed himself to simply exist in the stillness. This was followed by intentional pauses throughout his day. Whether it was a 10-minute breathing exercise after running errands or a quiet moment of reflection before dinner, these practices, though simple, transformed his life. His energy levels surged, his sleep improved, and even his tennis game became sharper. But the real beauty of mindful rest lies in its accessibility. It doesn't require special equipment, expensive memberships, or hours of time. It's as simple as pausing to notice the rhythm of your breath or taking a moment to stretch and relax your shoulders during a busy day. Let's try something together. Wherever you are, take a deep breath in through your nose and let it out slowly through your mouth. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, and notice the sensation of your body resting against the chair or the ground. This is a moment of mindful rest, a gift you can give yourself anytime, anywhere. David's journey reminds us that rest is not the opposite of productivity. It's what makes meaningful activity possible. When we're well rested, our movements are more graceful, our thoughts clearer, and our hearts lighter. Rest allows us to show up fully for the things that matter. Whether it's a game of tennis, a conversation with a friend, or simply enjoying the quiet beauty of a morning sunrise. As I left the community center that day, I couldn't stop thinking about how often we push ourselves to the brink, ignoring the gentle signals our bodies send us. David's story stayed with me, not just as a lesson in self-care, but as an invitation to rethink what it means to live well. Mindful rest isn't about doing less with our lives. It's about living more by doing less with purpose. So, as you move through your day, I encourage you to embrace moments of intentional stillness. Pause between activities, breathe deeply, and give yourself permission to rest. You may find, as David did, that these small acts of care can transform not just how you age, but how you experience life itself. Linda was someone who had always defined herself by her accomplishments. As an executive for one of the country's leading firms, her days were filled with strategy meetings, high-stakes negotiations, and meticulously planned goals. She thrived in the world of ambition and achievement, where every success was another step toward an ever-distant finish line. Yet, when she retired at 65, she was faced with a disconcerting emptiness. The calendar she had once prided herself on keeping full now loomed blank. And for the first time in her life, Linda didn't know how to fill her days. It was during one of these quiet, unstructured mornings that Linda stumbled into her backyard with a cup of tea. The world was still, the air crisp, and her gaze fell on a few neglected pots of soil that sat forgotten near the fence. On a whim, she decided to plant something, just a few herbs. Nothing elaborate. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal, she later told me. I just needed something to do. But what started as a simple distraction quickly became something much more. Each morning, Linda would step outside to check on her little garden. First, she marveled at the resilience of the tiny shoots breaking through the soil. Then she began to notice other things, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the subtle variations in the texture of the leaves, the rhythmic sway of flowers in the breeze. What had once been an overlooked corner of her yard transformed into a world brimming with life and beauty. As Linda described it, this small ritual anchored her in a way she hadn't experienced before. Her days, once dominated by grand ambitions and lofty goals, began to feel rich in a quieter, deeper way. I realized I didn't need to chase something big to feel fulfilled, she said. The joy was right here, waiting for me to notice it. Linda's experience is a poignant reminder that life's greatest treasures often lie in its simplest moments. Research supports this too. Studies have shown that people who regularly savor small, daily experiences report higher levels of happiness and satisfaction than those who focus solely on major milestones. It's not the grand achievements that sustain us. It's the small, consistent joys. I often think about how easy it is to overlook these moments. In the rush of life, we're conditioned to focus on what's next. The next task, the next promotion, the next big thing. But in doing so, we miss the beauty of what's already here. When was the last time you paused to truly feel the warmth of the sun on your skin? Or to savor the sound of leaves rustling in the wind? These moments might seem inconsequential, but they have the power to ground us, to remind us that there is beauty and meaning in the here and now. One of the simplest ways to tap into this sense of presence is by engaging your senses. Right now, wherever you are, take a moment to pause. Notice the texture of the fabric against your skin. Feel the rhythm of your breath as it flows in and out. Look around you. What catches your eye? Maybe it's the soft light of a lamp or the way shadows play on the wall. These little observations are not just sensory experiences. They are invitations to be present, to connect with the world around you in a meaningful way. This practice of tuning into the moment is something Linda embraced wholeheartedly through her gardening. Each day, as she tended to her plants, she found herself more attuned to the subtle rhythms of nature. She marveled at the way tiny droplets of dew sparkled in the early morning light, or how the scent of fresh basil lingered on her fingertips. These were not earth-shattering revelations, but they didn't need to be. They were enough. Over time, her small garden grew not just in size, but in significance. It became a sanctuary, a place where she could step away from the noise of the world and reconnect with something timeless. Linda began to notice changes in herself too. She felt calmer, more centered. The anxiety that had accompanied her transition into retirement began to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of contentment. I used to think happiness had to be earned, she reflected. Now I see that it's something you can find, even in the smallest of things. Her story inspires me to consider how we might cultivate this kind of joy in our own lives. What if we made a habit of noticing the small wonders around us? What if we allowed ourselves to delight in the way sunlight dances on water, or the comforting ritual of brewing a cup of tea? These moments, though fleeting, can anchor us in ways that grand accomplishments cannot. Linda often says that her garden taught her more about life than any boardroom ever could. It showed her the value of patience, the importance of nurturing what matters, and the beauty of simply being present. These lessons, though born from the soil, extend far beyond it. They are reminders that we don't need to wait for something extraordinary to happen in order to feel fulfilled. The magic is already here, waiting for us to slow down and notice it. As you go about your day, I encourage you to pause and ask yourself, what small joy can I savor right now? It might be the scent of a blooming flower, the warmth of a loved one's smile, or the satisfying crunch of your favorite snack. Whatever it is, let it remind you that life's richness lies not in what we achieve, but in how we experience it. Linda's journey is a testament to the transformative power of simple pleasures. Her garden, though modest in size, became a source of boundless joy and wisdom, and in tending to it, she rediscovered something profound, that happiness isn't something we chase, it's something we cultivate, one small moment at a time. There's something profoundly grounding about starting the day with a quiet moment of gratitude. It's as if, in those still minutes, the chaos of the world pauses just long enough for us to remember what truly matters. Gratitude is more than a passing feeling. It's a bridge between merely living and truly thriving. It shifts our focus away from what's missing and toward what's already present, offering us a deeper connection to the life we're living right now. I think of Bob whenever I reflect on the power of gratitude. At 84 years old, Bob has become a fixture at his neighborhood coffee shop in Boston. Every morning, at precisely 7 a.m., He sits at the same table by the window with a steaming cup of coffee and his well-worn notebook. There's an air of peace about him, a quiet contentment that draws people in without him ever trying. I remember asking Bob what kept him coming back to that spot day after day, and his answer was simple yet profound. This is where I take stock of the good in my life. Bob's morning ritual begins with 3 slow, intentional sips of his coffee. For each sip, he reflects on one thing he's grateful for. Sometimes it's the rich aroma of the coffee itself, the warmth of the mug in his hands, or the familiar faces of the baristas who greet him with a smile. Other times, it's a kind word from a grandchild, the way sunlight streams through the window, or even the fact that he woke up to see another day. After these moments of quiet reflection, Bob picks up his pen and jots down 3 specific things he's grateful for in his notebook. These aren't grandiose declarations. They're simple truths. Sarah's call, it made me laugh. One entry might read, or the sunrise today was beautiful. What struck me most about Bob wasn't just his practice, but the effect it had on him and those around him. He seemed lighter, more present, and deeply attuned to the world. It wasn't that his life was free of challenges. He'd faced his share of losses and difficulties, but his gratitude allowed him to meet those challenges with a resilience and grace that was inspiring. Gratitude doesn't erase the hard stuff, Bob explained to me one morning, but it reminds you that even on the toughest days, there's still something good. Bob's practice isn't just emotionally uplifting, it's scientifically backed. Research shows that regularly practicing gratitude can rewire the brain, fostering positive neural pathways that enhance mood and emotional resilience. People who focus on what they're grateful for often experience improved relationships, better physical health, and even stronger immune systems. Gratitude, it seems, doesn't just change how we see the world, it changes how we experience it on every level. But the magic of gratitude doesn't stop with the person practicing it. Its effects ripple outward, touching everyone around them. Bob's gratitude has transformed the small coffee shop into a community of sorts. Regulars who once sat in silence now strike up conversations with one another, often inspired by Bob's habit of noticing the good. One customer started bringing flowers to the shop every Friday, saying it was her way of giving back the joy. Another began keeping her own gratitude journal, encouraged by Bob's example. When you start noticing the good, Bob told me with a twinkle in his eye, you can't help but want to share it. This ripple effect is one of the most beautiful aspects of gratitude. It's contagious in the best way. When you express appreciation for someone, it often inspires them to pass that appreciation on to others. A heartfelt thank you can turn a mundane interaction into a meaningful connection, reminding both parties of the humanity they share. I've seen this firsthand in my own life, how a simple note of gratitude to a friend can lead to a deep, heartfelt conversation, or how taking a moment to thank a colleague can brighten their entire day. One of the most transformative practices I've learned from Bob is what he calls gratitude connections. Every time he speaks with his children or grandchildren, he makes it a point to express specific appreciation for something they've done or a quality he admires in them. It's never a generic, "I'm grateful for you," but something personal and detailed. "I love how you always remember to call on Sundays," he might say, or "Your laugh reminds me so much of your mother's. It makes my day." These small acts of appreciation have deepened his relationships in ways that words alone could never capture. I've started incorporating this into my own life, and it's been a game changer. There's a richness to expressing gratitude out loud, to naming the things we often take for granted and sharing them with the people who matter most. It's a practice that not only strengthens bonds, but also invites others to see themselves through a lens of kindness and value. If you're wondering how to begin weaving gratitude into your own life, it doesn't have to be complicated. Start small. As you sip your morning coffee or tea, take a moment to reflect on one thing you're grateful for. Could be as simple as the comfort of your favorite chair or the sound of birds outside your window. If writing feels more natural to you, consider keeping a gratitude journal like Bob. At the end of each day, jot down 3 things that brought you joy. no matter how small. Over time, you'll find that these moments begin to stand out more vividly, as if your mind is training itself to notice the good. And don't underestimate the power of sharing your gratitude with others. Think of someone who has made a positive impact on your life, and take a moment to let them know. Could be a quick text, a handwritten note, or even a heartfelt conversation. These expressions of gratitude not only brighten their day but also deepen your connection to them. As I reflect on Bob's story and the practice of gratitude, I'm reminded of how much beauty surrounds us, waiting to be noticed. Gratitude isn't about ignoring life's challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging that even in the midst of difficulty, there's something to hold on to, something that brings light to the darkness. It's a way of saying, yes, this is hard, but look at what's still good. The more I practice gratitude, the more I see its profound impact on my life and the lives of those around me. It's not always easy, especially on tough days, but it's always worth it, because when we choose to focus on what we're thankful for, we're not just changing our perspective, we're changing the world. One small moment at a time, in the quiet hours of the morning, when the world is still cloaked in soft shadows and the air feels alive with possibility. There's a moment that feels like a gift. It's a time when everything seems untouched by the demands of the day, and gratitude, like a steady flame, can illuminate the path ahead. As I sit with my morning coffee in hand, I often reflect on 3 simple things that make me feel grounded. It might be the warmth of the cup between my fingers, the golden light stretching across my kitchen floor, or the gentle hum of a bird greeting the new day. These are small, almost imperceptible moments, but they carry a profound weight when I pause long enough to notice them. This practice didn't come naturally to me at first. Like many, I used to wake up already racing, thinking about deadlines, emails, or the long list of tasks waiting to be tackled. It wasn't until I began intentionally carving out time for gratitude in the morning that I noticed a shift. My mornings became less of a hurried sprint and more of a sacred ritual. With each passing day, this practice felt less like an effort and more like a refuge. Gratitude in the morning is not about sweeping declarations or grand epiphanies. It's about the small, tangible moments that tether us to the present. The Buddha often spoke about mindfulness as the foundation for awakening. To be fully present, he taught, is to truly see the interconnectedness of all things. This is what gratitude offers, a lens through which we can recognize the beauty that exists in our everyday lives. As the day progresses, it's easy to lose sight of this clarity. Challenges arise, tempers may flare, and the relentless pull of what's next can overwhelm even the calmest of intentions. But when evening comes, there's another chance to reflect. Before lying down to sleep, I find myself replaying the day's events, searching for 3 moments that brought light into my day. Sometimes, they're obvious: a kind word from a friend, the laughter of a child, or a spectacular sunset. Other times, they're subtler, like the way a stranger held the door open for me or how a familiar scent stirred a fond memory. This evening ritual has become a way to close the chapter of each day with a sense of peace. It reminds me that even on the most difficult days, there is always something to be grateful for. It's a practice that mirrors the Buddhist teaching of appreciating impermanence. Life is fleeting, and each moment, no matter how small, is precious. By acknowledging these moments, we honor their significance and carry their light into tomorrow. One of the most transformative aspects of gratitude, however, lies not in what we keep to ourselves but in what we share with others. Expressing gratitude to someone else creates a ripple effect, strengthening connections and fostering a sense of community. I remember a time when I decided to write a thank you note to an old mentor who had profoundly shaped my career. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but I felt an urge to let her know how much her guidance had meant to me. When I finally sent the letter, I wasn't expecting a response, but when it came, her words left me deeply moved. She shared how my note had arrived during a particularly challenging time in her life, and it reminded her of the impact she had made. That exchange taught me that gratitude, when shared, not only uplifts the recipient but also brings a sense of fulfillment to the giver. This mirrors the Buddhist concept of interconnectedness, how our actions, no matter how small, resonate far beyond what we can see. When we express our appreciation to others, we're not just acknowledging their impact, we're nurturing the bonds that tie us together. These moments of connection are the threads that weave the fabric of a meaningful life. Gratitude, at its core, is a practice of mindfulness and humility. It reminds us that we are not self-sufficient islands but part of a larger, interconnected whole. The Buddha's teachings on dependent origination emphasize this truth. Nothing exists independently. Our joys, successes, and even challenges are shaped by countless factors, including the kindness and efforts of others. Recognizing this interdependence through gratitude allows us to step outside of ourselves and see the world with a more compassionate and open heart. When I reflect on the ways gratitude has enriched my life, I'm reminded of a metaphor often used in Buddhist teachings, the lotus flower. The lotus blooms in muddy waters, transforming its surroundings into a source of beauty and life. In many ways, gratitude is like the lotus. It doesn't deny the existence of difficulty or suffering, but finds a way to rise above it, turning even the muddiest of waters into nourishment for growth. As I write this, I think about how these simple practices, morning gratitude, evening reflections, and gratitude connections, have reshaped not only how I see the world but also how I move through it. They have taught me that gratitude is not just an emotion but a way of being. It is a lens that sharpens our focus on what matters, a bridge that connects us to others, and a foundation that keeps us grounded in the present. If you're reading this, perhaps you're considering how gratitude might fit into your own life. Maybe you're wondering where to begin or how such a simple practice could make a difference. My suggestion is to start small. Tomorrow morning, as you sip your coffee or tea, pause for just a moment. Let the warmth of the cup anchor you. Look around and find one thing, just one, that you're thankful for. At the end of the day, before you close your eyes, replay the moments that made you smile, no matter how fleeting they seemed. And when the opportunity arises, share your gratitude with someone else. Tell them how they've brightened your life in some way. These small acts may seem insignificant, but they hold the power to transform not just your perspective but the energy you bring into the world. In the end, gratitude is both a practice and a philosophy, a way of aligning ourselves with the present and recognizing the abundance that already exists in our lives. As the Buddha taught, the seeds we plant today shape the fruit we harvest tomorrow. By cultivating gratitude, we sow seeds of joy, connection, and peace that not only enrich our own lives but also ripple outward, touching the lives of those around us. So as you move forward, I invite you to pause and consider, what are you grateful for right now? Perhaps it's the quiet rhythm of your breath, the presence of a loved one, or simply the gift of this moment. Whatever it is, hold it close, let it anchor you, and let it remind you that, in the grand tapestry of life, even the smallest threads can hold great meaning. As we come to the end of this journey together, let me leave you with a thought. Life is not measured by the grand milestones we achieve, but by the quiet moments we cherish along the way. It's in the stillness of a morning pause, the warmth of sunlight on our skin, the laughter shared with loved ones, or even the simple gratitude for another day. David taught us the value of mindful rest, not as a retreat from life, but as a way to live it more fully. Linda reminded us that joy is not found in chasing the extraordinary, but in savoring the beauty of the everyday. And Bob showed us that gratitude is a seed that, when nurtured, blooms into a garden of connection, peace, and resilience. Now, I invite you to take a moment to reflect. What small joy have you noticed today? Perhaps it was a kind smile, the comfort of your favorite chair, or the aroma of your morning coffee. Whatever it is, let it remind you that life's richest treasures are often the simplest. As you carry these lessons forward, remember this: each day is a gift, and within it lies the opportunity to rest mindfully, find joy, and express gratitude. These practices don't just add years to your life, they add life to your years. Before we part, I leave you with a question to ponder. What will you do tomorrow to honor the beauty of today? Let this thought guide you as you continue to walk the path of discovery and growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If these lessons have inspired you, share them with someone you care about, and let's continue spreading the light of meaningful living together. Until next time, take care, and may your days be filled with peace, joy, and gratitude